Welcome to Jesus-Centric Life. I'm Donna. I'm here with Pastor Josh. And today we're talking about what if Christians were hard to offend? So I want to dive right in.
Yeah.
Does Christianity and being offended, can those two things live together?
Yes.
Should they live together?
Yes.
Okay, help us understand that.
Yeah. So, well, let's start here. I think there's this concept of, we're supposed to be love, like even 1 Corinthians 13:4-7. Love isn't irritable or resentful, right? And so we get this idea that we can't be offended by things. And I think at some level, offended is a feeling, and a feeling is brought on by why? Because somebody did something.
Right.
And so if I'm sad, is it bad to be sad?
Well, no.
No, but you're a Christian. You shouldn't be sad. You have the love of Jesus. Why should you be sad? Right? And so I think this idea that I can't feel offended is just not right. Go ahead.
Well, I feel like we accept it. When Joshua was little and we would walk by maybe Victoria's Secret and I would encourage him not to look, right? I was offended as a mom that they would put those images on the outside of their stores.
In a family place, yeah.
Correct, which caused possibly my son to struggle.
Yeah.
Right? So those kind of offenses seem acceptable in our society.
Yes.
A movie that's inappropriate that I may need to walk out of, I can be offended by that.
Yeah.
Where is the line? Where does the world believe that we as Christians should not be offended?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't be offended when somebody has a choice, right? Or we shouldn't be offended when it might infringe on somebody else's ability to do whatever they want.
Okay.
Right? And so I shouldn't be offended when in Disney movies there's, kids Disney's movies, there's the kid with two moms, right? I shouldn't be offended by that. I should just be okay with that. Right? And so and so that becomes, then I get labeled as a Christian. It goes from being labeled as, well, you're supposed to be loving and kind and judgment, to know you can't be offended because you're a Christian.
So I can be offended by the store that's showing stuff on the outside. I can be offended by the movie, but I cannot be offended by your rights, your choices.
That's sometimes how I feel it and I experience it. That it's not right for me as a Christian to be offended by, what other people choose to do. I have to kind of just be okay with that.
And how do we? How do we navigate that?
Yeah.
And why is this a topic that we're discussing?
Yeah, and so. Why I think it's important because it is important what we do with our offense. And so I think offense is a little bit like anger. There's a lot of verses about anger, like James 1:19-20, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. We're also we see these pictures of Jesus being angry and, doing something. We're called as Christians to hate what is evil, cling to what is good. We're called in Ephesians 4:26, it says, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. I think what's key there is it doesn't say it's wrong to be angry. And in the same way, I don't think it's wrong to be offended. I think what we sometimes do as Christians, though, is I'm offended, so that gives me the right to be offensive.
Okay.
And so
Speak
then
a little bit to that.
So then we take the offense we have and we say, I'm justified to be offended, and you are, right? You're justified to be offended when you walk by Victoria's Secrets. But what if you stopped there and you started railing at the people that worked there? Is that okay?
No, not.
I Probably, I don't think so. Now, maybe there's a situation where you can say that it was but I don't think that's okay. Now, are you justified in boycotting that mall because they have that there? Yeah, right? Like, but I think when you start using your offense and justify it for a reason to lash out at people in your offense, then that becomes wrong.
So let's go to Jesus in the market, because that's where Jesus was offended.
Yeah.
And he did act out. Mm-hmm. So walk us through that. Why was that offense okay, and why was the way he handled it okay? And how are we called? Because he was very loving. He was healing. He was doing these great things, and then one day he just like lost it.
Yeah. So I think so one of them is Matthew 21:12-13. Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. Is it written, he said to them, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you have made it into a den of robbers. Let's start here. Jesus wasn't doing this every day. So the regularity of which you rage out at people or get offended and lash out at people, the regularity of it is concerning, right? So if you're online every day railing against somebody, you're always in your friend group decrying the depravity of this immoral activity. You're always, right? If that
what you judge to be bad behavior.
Yeah. So let's start with that the regularity of how you react with your offense is something.
Yeah, because I think this is the only time we really do see Jesus get angry. Is that right?
Yeah, the main one. There's some times where he's kind of overcome.
When the disciples were arguing who was the greatest. He got pointed.
But this one, he really goes above and beyond. This is kind of the what would Jesus do? Well, he might just grab a whip and clear the, right? Which
what would Jesus do?
Yeah, it's like, most of the time he's going to sit and talk to you, but this time, and so I think like.
Is that Jesus losing it right there?
Yeah, it kind of seems like it. Now, again, the one verse, and I don't have that one in front of me, but the one verse says he stopped and made a whip, or it implies that he stopped and made a whip. And so I take that as he thought about it before he did it.
It wasn't just Jesus reacting.
Yeah, Jesus didn't just like rage out. Like he decided to show some anger and frustration in more of a visible way. And so that's part of it. 2, let's remember that Jesus gets to judge, we don't. Right? Like, so at some level, right? Like this is his right because he's God.
Right.
But again, I would just go back to the regularity. If there's one time, right, that you're in a group of people and you just kind of think about it and you're like, yeah, this is wrong that we're saying that Disney should show this in their movies, right? If you think about it, you like pause for a minute and pray, God, do I get a little more animated here? And then you go off in the moment of, I'm sorry guys, I'm going to be a little more animated because this is not okay. And you show a little passion because it matters, right? I think there's value in that. But again, if you're doing that all the time, that's where I get concerned. It's this balance thing that Jesus didn't always do that. And to always do that is letting your offense dictate, not your wisdom dictate. And I think to be Christ-like is to let our wisdom dictate. Is this the best time for that? And I'll just use this example. The more I yell at my kids, and I don't yell much. I do choose to raise my voice some. But the more I do that, I'll use a totally different example. I'm coaching soccer right now, and I can tell the kids, if you don't pay attention, you're going to run. Every time I do that, it loses its power.
Yeah.
Right? Every time I say that, it loses its power. And I think the same is with your emotion and animation. Like if you're if you're offended all the time and you're lashing out with your offense all the time, what's going to happen is people are going to listen less and less to you. It's the boy who cried wolf, right?
Yeah.
Like they're going to listen to you less and less. And so how we use that is really important. So back to the yelling at my kids, I do raise my voice sometimes. I do it sparingly and I do it really intentionally. And I think as a Christian, I think how we use being offended and showing that we've been offended, how we use that, we have to be careful in that.
Yeah, I've said it before. It's like if you're always yelling, the kids reach a point they don't know if the house is really on fire or not. And if we're always responding like the house is on fire. And same thing as Christians, we're always responding negatively, angrily, frustrated.
Yeah.
Then I'm just another angry, frustrated, whatever Christian.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I worry about going here because it could be too much of an analogy because there's a lot of loadedness to it. But I do want to talk about Charlie Kirk here for just a moment.
And we haven't done that.
We haven't done that. And so I'll just start here. I quite honestly, I'd seen a few of Charlie Kirk's videos. I said it publicly. I didn't really know who he was. But because I had people that were grieving the loss of him, I went and watched a whole lot of videos of him, like a whole lot. And I came away with a perception about the man, and whether you like him or not, I think there's a study in him. No matter how you feel about his politics, there's a study in him about how he used offense, how he just sat and listened, and when he would speak up really boldly and courageously and animatedly. And there's a balance of him. So one of my favorite... And
a really interesting of how when he would challenge and when he would pull back.
Yeah, and I think he walked that really well of I can be offended and not always act on it. Mm-hmm. I can be offended and not always tap into using that emotion. Mm-hmm. And that's really, but the one that really has stood out at me, and we're not even going to link it to, you can find it, but it's got bad language on it. It's kind of crass. I'm not with Charlie, but with the other person, but it's this podcast on something called Club Random by Bill Maher. And I don't know how I found it, but to set it up, Bill Maher is a politically opposite of Charlie. He's left, Charlie's right. He's an atheist, Charlie's a Christian. Charlie doesn't drink alcohol. This guy is pouring drinks the whole podcast. He's also smoking weed the whole podcast. Very right? Very different than Charlie. Okay. And he offers to Charlie, and Charlie's like, no, but don't do that. And Bill's like, is it okay that I do? And as your podcast, you can, kind of a thing from Charlie. And so it's just fascinating. But this whole time, and then they get into talking about faith, and Bill asks some really hard questions, but also kind of says some really blunt things about what he thinks about Christianity. And Charlie just kind of sits there really calm, and he doesn't not say anything, but just the calmness of that he entered into this harsh conversation in this harsh environment where this person is challenging him.
Who's trying to set him off, probably.
Possibly. It's possible in that, but by the end, it's fascinating. Bill says this. He's like, it's something along the lines of, Charlie, you're your friend. Can I call you a friend, right? And so Charlie's like, yeah. He didn't win Bill over because he convinced him or showed him emotion or showed him that his Christianity mattered. I think he won him over with his calmness, with his sincerity of, you can challenge me and tell me all those things are wrong, but what I believe at the end of the day, this is what I believe, and I'll tell you flat out why you're wrong and why I'm right. But he was just so calm in doing all of it. And again, you balance this out with, the Charlie sometimes you see at the rallies that is, calling things out and really being blunt and really bold. And it just, I think there's a time and a place. And so I think it comes down to this: are we letting our fence run the game? Or are we letting the wisdom of Christ run the game? And I think there's times that we can be bold and we can say it and we can be courageous. But whenever we're acting with letting our fence run the game, we're kind of letting our fence run the show. And I think we should use our offense at certain times, but let our wisdom run the show. I think that's what I'm coming down to.
Yeah,
and all that.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so what's going to look like is it's going to look like somebody that's a little more balanced. It's going to look like somebody who's, and again, I don't know Charlie Kirk's heart. Maybe he was just really good at, doing the right thing. But what I think I saw is someone who was really had their hopes centered in Jesus. And because of that, he could, speak.
But do you feel that Christians feel like somebody like a Bill Maher is going to walk all over them, or somebody who sees the opposite view as me is going to walk all over me if I don't come at it from hard offense? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I guess what I would say is, does Jesus need you to be his lawyer?
Okay, explain that.
Right. So Bill Maher puts Jesus on trial in front of Charlie Kirk. Did Jesus ask Charlie to be his lawyer? Does Jesus need Charlie to be his lawyer? Even Charlie, does Jesus need that? I'm not sure he does. But Jesus does need us to speak up. I don't want you to be shy. I don't want you to just take it. I don't want you to just sit there. But I don't need you to defend him either. In the sense that the lawyer does. I don't need you to be louder so that you're heard. Sometimes your calm about it can send a better and clearer message about who Jesus is. Sometimes you're calm about the fact that, I don't like that that's in Disney movies. I think it's, I think it's trying to teach our kids things that, aren't our values. I think it's trying to get them to believe things that aren't correct. And I don't like that. And I can say that calmly at the same time. And I think this is where the calm comes from. The calm comes from the fact that I know I'm going to teach my kids about Jesus. I know that Jesus loves them and Jesus is going to hang on to them. And so my calm comes from the peace that I have in Jesus, not the fact that I might be able to change this situation and control it. And I think that's how we had to have to enter into these conversations. It's not my job to control the outcome of the conversation.
Yeah, I don't have to take it personally. I don't have to win.
Yeah, because again,
I just need to be the pebble in your shoe. Yeah, and I think sometimes the calmness, that's the value of calmness. I think the calmness can be the pebble in somebody's shoe. I think when I watched the Bill, again, I don't want to keep on this, but I do. When I watched the Bill Maher and Charlie Kirk, when I watched them talk, I think Bill thought he was going to get him riled up. And I'm going to sit here and smoke weed, I'm going to drink, and I'm going to talk about all the things you don't want to talk about. Yeah,
and I think what ended up happening is and Bill actually, after Charlie passed, he did a video about him. That one was fascinating too. But I think Charlie has thrown a pebble in Bill Maher's shoe because he saw a different side of Christianity that he didn't expect he was going to see in this. Even what it says, the firebrand Charlie Kirk, right? That's how the YouTube video terms him, this firebrand Charlie Kirk. That's not the version that Charlie was, right? He was somebody who cared deeply about Bill, who wanted to share the truth, but was okay if Bill didn't agree. And I think I want to watch what happens to Bill. I'm curious, if faith is a part of his life later down the road, because Charlie was willing to
throw a pebble in
his pebble in the shoe. And I wonder, I don't know, but it comes back to whether or not you agree with Charlie or not. That's not the point. The point is, I think he embodied a certain calmness.
So we've got some listeners that are going to go, oh, here goes Pastor again. Oh, we're taking the soft side. We're not going to burn any houses down today. We're not going to, we're not going to represent well. Here we are taking a passive.
Yeah.
So what separates being offensive from being passive?
Well, yeah. So again, this is where a lot of you that are going to challenge me on that side of it you love Charlie Kirk. Just go watch the video, watch what he does, right? I'm using your guy to embody this. So I'm just going to say that bluntly. It's not an accident that I'm using him to make this argument. So that's part of it. But I think I don't want you to be passive. I want you to be active in a shrewd, intelligent, Christ-like manner. right? Be wise as serpents, innocent as doves, right? Wise as serpent. Isn't that a crazy one?
Yeah.
Wise as serpents, innocent as doves. So smart, know your stuff, study up on apologetics, be ready to give an answer, but be innocent as dove. The last thing that we want is for someone to say, well, there's just a crazy bleepity bleep, right? That's the innocent as doves. Well, what do they think about us? Do they see someone who has an agenda or somebody who cares? And when I talk to people, I want them to see someone who generally cares about them, because I do. I care about their salvation. I care about their morality. I care about the morality that they're teaching the world. I care about those things, and I care about them. I don't see them as an enemy, because again, what does the Bible say? We do not wage battle against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces in the heavenly realms. We are not fighting the people in front of us. We are fighting Satan. And so how do I gain a relationship with the people? Through my calmness, my sincerity, my not backing down from truth, yes. But how do I gain an audience and a relationship with them?
Wise as serpents. My son owned a snake. And I never understood that, wise as serpents, until we put a mouse in a box and the snake was going to eat the mouse. And Josh was like, Mom, you got to watch this. And I'm like, I do not want to watch this. But I did. And
maybe don't explain too much, because that's going to freak some people out.
Know,
but they were wise.
Yeah. How they capture and how they go about it is incredibly wise and slow and methodical. And I wonder if we handle more things like that.
Yeah.
Instead of impetuous and fast and offended and angry.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when I think part of that is we live in a TikTok and reel culture. And so what you see on the TikToks and the reels are the most offensive, the most bold, the most courageous things. That's what they put. And so it's like I can preach a sermon and I can say one thing in there that's really like bold, and it's like, oh, boom, like dropping it. But like if you don't hear the whole sermon, you miss that. And so I think the same is true sometimes with people like Charlie. Like when you get the 15-second or the minute of it, you see this. When you see the hour and a half, 2 hours of him talking with Bill Maher, you get a different view of him. And so I think like we have to remember that too when we're on media, when we're on these places, that what they're showing for us is a soundbite. We want to go to the big thing where they're having the full conversation.
So what would change in our world if Christians became hard to offend? If we became maybe the opposite, the quickest to forgive? What would change?
Maybe nothing.
There you have it.
Maybe nothing, and maybe everything.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe my thing is how are we supposed to be? Like maybe less than what would change or what effect is. How are we supposed to be? Like how do we look more like Christ? Like how do we look like the Christ that sat down with the woman at the well and the Christ who drove the temple out? And again, I think some of that is with the balance. My guess is real easily I can find you 10 stories where he was gentle and calm and meek and mild, and then I can find one where he was, brutish and bold and courageous. But like, let's make sure we have that balance. Like how often are we having and not just this, I was calm because I didn't say anything in this situation. I want you to be calm and say 10 things before you ever say something, right, that's more stronger. And so often we as Christians, we like say, well, I'm calm because I didn't say anything. Or I will say this, I bit my tongue for so long I can't anymore. Say something before you have to bite your tongue. Like, don't you can't balance 10 times you didn't say anything with the one time you blew up and said something. You have to balance it the 10 times you said it calmly, and now I maybe get one where I get a little more animated. That's kind of the balance I think I'm talking about.
I used to have counseling class, and when I was in college, and one of the greatest lessons Dr. Karpinko taught us was to attain. And what he would say is when you're sitting with someone and they're sharing something with you, I want you to pause and I want you to pray right there in your mind.
Yeah.
God, let me be wise, let me be balanced, let me be, help me to have your words right now. And he said, what you will find on the other side of that prayer is such a wisdom and such a balance, because you're giving it over to God.
Yeah.
Right? And I wonder if we did that instead of coming out with the fury of offense. I'm offended. I'm angry. Here I come. I'm coming at you. But just to attain, just stop and give it to God. And on the other side, if there's an anger, maybe it's a righteous anger.
Yeah.
But if we don't give it to God, it is going to come out of self, and that's not the place I want to be.
Yeah. 2 Corinthians, as you're talking, 2 Corinthians 10:5 popped up, but we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God. And then, I love this, and take every thought captive.
Yeah.
Right? Like, your goal is to destroy those arguments the world is taking out. But as you do that way, you take every thought, including your own, captive to obey Christ. And so when I'm in the midst of that,
right,
am I obeying what my thoughts and emotions are saying, or am I taking them captive in the moment in order that I might be wise and speak Christ in the right way in the situation?
Yeah.
And I think just letting our thoughts or our emotions take over isn't right either.
Yeah.
I think there are times, again, if you want to show a little emotion because you want to show that this really matters to you, if you think about it, if you pray about it real quick, and then you do. But we shouldn't be too quick to just show our emotions, show that we're offended. We should walk in love.
Well, and then we see less outrage, less division, less walking away, and more patience, more humility, more grace, and more Christ-likeness. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for joining us for today's discussion, and we will see you next week for Jesus-Centric Life. Have a great day.